Hey, happy Thursday, everybody. We just wanted to hop on real quick and do a couple things. One is to kind of speak some direction of what the next few weeks will look like leading up to Easter. Coming off this big series, this new direction of church, if you will, leading straight into Easter, and just kind of want to give you really what to expect over the next 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. But first, I want to read a passage that kind of sets up where I want our minds to be over this next few weeks. We're not necessarily celebrating Lent and preparing our heart for Easter. However, the next 3 weeks, I want us to begin to think about this thought, this verse, as we go throughout the days and the weeks leading up to Easter. And this is what John reads or writes in John chapter 2, verse 23. It says, "Now when he was in Jerusalem at the Passover feast, many believed in his name when they saw the signs that he was doing. But Jesus on his part did not entrust himself to them, because he knew all people, and he needed no one to bear witness about man, for he himself knew what was in man." In the context of this passage, Jesus had just began his ministry here. So we're some 3 years before his death. And so he begins his ministry. It starts with the calling of the disciples, his first miracle being changing water to wine, and then he goes into the temple and cleanses the temple. And as he's hanging out there for Passover, it says that many believed because of the signs that he was doing, that they were attracted to the things that were going on. Yet Jesus knew that their faith, their belief, was surface level. They were just interested in the things that he was doing. And so John writes that Jesus didn't entrust himself to anyone because he knew all people. And he needed no one to bear witness about man, for he himself knew what was in man. Isn't that a challenging, isn't that a convicting type thing, understanding that Jesus knew what was in man? And contextually, yes, it's talking about this false belief, but we can apply that to from this point in John chapter 2 to the rest of Jesus's life leading up for the next 3 years. There wasn't a person that he did not come in contact with that he didn't know what was in them. So he knew what in John 3 when Nicodemus comes, he knows what's in Nicodemus's heart. We see it actually in John chapter 1 with Nathanael, how he knew Nathanael's heart whenever he called him. And so contextually, this is the thought, this is the mindset. From the next 3 weeks, next 3.5 weeks, when we begin to think about Jesus dying on the cross, think about it in terms that he knew what was in man. So every person he came in contact with, he knew what was in man, yet he still set his face towards Jerusalem. He still decided to continue in his mission that the Father had sent him. And you know what that means for me and you is that we have this idea that many times that who we really are was down in our heart. We have to hide it, or we have to kind of just to push it down, or we go the other extreme and just fully embrace it, saying, this is who we are. There's nothing I can do about it, and there's no hope, so I'm just going to live it up, if you will. Good news is that Jesus knows that deepest thing, that thing that we try to hide, that thing that we try to just push down, or even that thing we try to overcompensate and say, this is just who I am. Jesus knows what is in man, yet he still set his face towards Jerusalem. So as we as a church journey, if you will, as we ascend the hill, as we journey with Jesus' final weeks of his life, this Sunday we will start with communion and setting our hearts and our minds in that, right? Over the next few weeks, we're going to talk and think through that idea that Jesus knew what was in man, yet he died anyway. And then the last week, Holy Week, if you will, we will spend time thinking about each day what Jesus was doing through a 7-day prayer guide, if you will, of us focusing on that and preparing our hearts for Jesus, his death, burial, and resurrection. So be encouraged this morning. You don't have to hide it. You don't have to push it down. Hey, and you don't have to settle for it. Jesus knew it. Jesus knows it. And he still chose to die. Anyway, hey, I hope you make plans to be here this Sunday. Invite somebody. We look forward to seeing you.